My name's Evan Greer. I'm the campaign director of Fight for the Future. And we're a nonprofit organization that works to preserve the internet as a free and open platform for social change and freedom of expression.
It's probably fair to say that the last year has seen a very significant victory for Fight for the Future. And I wonder if you could just encapsulate that for us, so bring everyone up to speed.
Sure thing. So over the past year, we ran a massive public campaign that led to the United States enacting the strongest network neutrality protections in our country's history. Essentially, the FCC, our regulatory agency that addresses these issues, enacted bright line rules that prevent internet service providers from blocking, throttling, or otherwise interfering with legal internet content, which was a major victory that essentially no one thought was possible for a scrappy group of activists to take on one of the most sophisticated lobbying armies in our country's history.
And how cast iron is that victory, however? I mean, is this legislation truly unbreakable?
There's no such thing as unbreakable legislation in the highly partisan and somewhat circusy United States realm of politics. But these are very strong rules that are on a very solid legal footing. And the reason that we as Fight for the Future and most other nonprofit organizations fought for the Title II-based net neutrality rules that we have is because they are, in fact, the strongest legal footing for net neutrality rules. Now, of course, coming down the road, there will always be attacks on these rules, but I think what we saw over the past year is that internet users care deeply about their free and open access to the entire web, and they will fight to protect it.
And it's a very sort of relevant question because we currently see a lot of the presidential candidates lining up for both major political parties. I wonder what observations you have about certain different candidates in terms of whether they are, so to speak, pro or anti-internet.
Sure. I mean, the candidates have weighed in sort of as expected in this case. Unfortunately, over the past year, net neutrality became a bit of a partisan issue in the United States, which it had never been before, and actually isn't outside of Washington, D.C. Voters across the political spectrum overwhelmingly support net neutrality protections in principle. A recent poll said over 81% of voters, both Republicans and Democrats, support the basic principles behind net neutrality. Unfortunately, inside Washington, D.C., it's become, again, a bit of a circus. And so we see the Republican candidates primarily pontificating about how net neutrality is this horrible government regulation that's going to end the US telecom industry as we know it and bring down the internet in fiery balls of flame. And we have Democrats sort of standing up, defending it, and supporting it. That said, we at Fight for the Future, we're a nonpartisan organization. We don't particularly sit around trusting any of them. We're going to be keeping our eyes on all politicians of all political parties and ensuring that we hold them accountable and that they stand up to protect the internet as a free and open platform for our children.
Okay, so I don't know if you'd be able to throw your hat in the ring here, but if you had to pick one candidate from the current pool on both sides who was potentially best for the future health of net neutrality in the internet, and one who would be, based on what they've said and what their associations are, the worst, which would they be?
Best and worst. It's hard to pick with the field of characters we have right now. Clearly, Jeb Bush has thrown his hat into the ring as staunchly opposing net neutrality and has been putting out some misleading talking points about that. So that's something that we're concerned about. On the other side, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and most of the Democratic candidates have supported it. Taking it to a slightly different issue that affects all internet users as well, though, on government surveillance issues, I think it's important to note that Bernie Sanders recently came out in opposition to CISA, which is a US cybersecurity law that essentially would undermine user privacy. And on the Republican side, Rand Paul has also opposed that, whereas most of the other candidates have remained silent. So I think it is interesting that you do see candidates on both sides that are standing up for internet users and recognizing that internet users are demanding both net neutrality and freedom of expression and privacy online.
Fantastic. And finally, you've come obviously a long way to be at the Broadband World Forum. What kind of reception does Fight for the Future get with all the service providers and operators who are at an event like this?
I'm going to be honest with you, this is my first time being in a room primarily full of telecoms lobbyists and CEOs and related folks, so we'll have to see how they react. And I'm happy to, if someone from Comcast is here, I'm happy to buy them a pint, and I hope we're still friends.